we didn't use the term OSS at all. That was not to be breathed. We got word, do not come home until the mission is finished.
You are about to embark upon the Great Crusade
to meet this mounting aggression.
And make no mistake about it, good will prevail.
Born in Scituate, Massachusetts, raised in Scituate, Massachusetts, until I left home for the Army. My father bought 2 tickets for air ride at a local airport for my 3rd birthday, and that did it. I was injected and I couldn't get it out. During World War II, they conscripted hotels in the boardwalk, Atlantic City, and that was our first touch with Army for a month. And then a number of us was taken out and sent to Syracuse University for 3 months, and then down to Texas for the better part of a year. First was an aviation cadet classification center, and then an aviation cadet pre-flight school. Even completing then, we never saw an airplane. 2 more bases in Texas, Coleman, Texas for the primary, Majors Field, which is in eastern Texas. That was for basic training, and then for advanced training in southern Oklahoma. And that was a little twin-engine Cessna-built airplane. Graduated and went training in southwest Kansas, the B-24 Command Pilot School. And that took 3 months. Well, I thought it was ugly. It's not the choice that I would have made if I had my choice. They told me I was going to have my choice, but it didn't turn out. I wanted to fly A-20s and A-26s. That is interesting to me because it was close support for ground troops. And instead, I ended up in the stratosphere. Well, heavy bombardment is anything that can deliver 6,000 or more pounds of bombs. The B-24 could hold 8,000. And in addition to that, it could hold all of the shells and belts of ammunition for the gunners. B-24 had 10 50 caliber guns, 4 turrets and 2 manual. Railroad yards, railroad junctions. For instance, they discovered that Vienna, everybody's basement had a screw machine of some sort making widgets for the military. We went in and did mass bombing for Vienna. I was one of 1,500 airplanes one day, all types of airplanes, not all at once, but throughout the day. That stopped all the widget manufacturing. Once the bombardier says target acquired, he threw a switch, and that bomb sight navigated the airplane right and left. All you did was keep it on the altitude, or if you were not the first one, you just flew next to the airplane that was in front of you in your position. As soon as the bombardier said, bombs away, then you got the airplane back, descended sharply and turned sharply to defeat the aiming capability of the gunners. There was one flight that was supposedly a milk run, which was a name given to something that you really shouldn't be getting credit for. It's so easy. They said that, number one, they only have 8 guns that can reach your altitude. And number 2, sky is totally covered with clouds, low clouds. And so we will be bombing on the lead bombardier's radar site. Well, they really did have 8 guns that get up there. We got in visual range of the target. We hadn't turned on to the initial point yet, but we could see the previous flight up there. It had 8 bursts, and the 8 bursts happened at once. They were using our transponder, which in those days we called them friend or foe. We would put down a code into it each mission that identified you. So the IFF, identification friend or foe. But they didn't care what the identification was. All they knew was when they sent out a radar blip, it came back to them. And all they needed to know was arithmetic, and they could set shells to go off then. And they aimed them by radar. Each 8 burst that we saw a B-24 slide off like that. After we got on our initial point, we had lost 2 already. Now there's only 5 of us, and the person who was in front of me said, "You better take over. It's only my 6th mission." I said, "Hey, do whatever you want, but this is my 2nd mission." He said, "Well, we don't have a bomb sight." And I said, "Well, we're up here. Guess at it. Tell the bombardier to guess at it, and we'll drop on your drop," which we did. Well, during that time, because of airplanes going out, I was a little out of position, so I was sliding over to get into a tight position with this one over here, and he got it in the bomb bay. I mean, it was just a blinding flash, and taking away your eyesight. And when it came back to normal, there was nothing. When I landed, the ground crew chief met us, and he said, "I want to show you something." On that side of the airplane, the left side of the airplane, there was all little tiny pieces of aluminum, almost like aluminum foil that was stuck to the side of my airplane. That was his airplane. And of course, that meant that 10 men were... That was probably the most notable flight to me, because I see that recurrent many times. The love of flying didn't escape my seniors, and no matter what little small flight there was, the colonel would say, "Well, get Billings, he'll fly it," and Billings did. And maybe another captain didn't feel good one day, I would take his trip. So I gathered more points than my crew did. My bombardier, my navigator, and 4 back gunners, they took extra missions trying to keep up with me. One such day, my 4 back gunners, the right and left waist gunners, the belly gunner, and the tail gunner, all went on the same mission. At first I thought it was the same airplane, but it was not. It was 4 different airplanes, and none of them got back. Within 3 days, I was called in and said that I was going to go to the 885th. I said, what am I going to be doing down there? He said, "You'll find out when you get there, if they want to tell you." We didn't use the term OSS at all. That was not to be breathed. Number one, they were all at night, and the OSS B-24s, in addition to no bottom turret, was painted gloss black. So that was to make it hard for the Klieg operators to hold the Klieg light on the airplane. because it just makes one little sparkle instead of showing up the whole wing pattern. At first, we were given just supply trips, and it was interesting. We got there, and we were going to have a little training session for the bombardier, because the bombardier was going to have to use not a bomb site, but just to guesswork, to drop out people and parachute loads and so forth. They had somebody else's bombardier instruct my bombardier how to do this. So he said, this time it's going to be a dry run, and I will tell you what I see to the time and let us know. Circled back around and made another run, and this time my bombardier was going to say what time, and he said, this looks good. And of course, I'm hearing it because it's on intercom. The other bombardier says, okay, let's go and do it, and we'll dump the load on it and see how good it is. My bombardier said to him, okay, might as well open the bomb doors. That bombardier reached down too quick and hit the salvo lever instead of the bomb door lever. Out went all of the loads through the closed doors. The doors were just flapping in the breeze. Well, that wasn't the worst part. All the things that were in the bomb bay, live ammo, landed on a British supply ship sitting in the harbor. My first flight for OSS turned into an international event. This next one was a little different in that it was not explained at all. What we did was load up our crew and make sure everything is set with the load, start up the engines, taxi out, and stop at the end of the runway and wait. Pretty soon a little panel truck would show up. It would drive up underneath the right wing, and somebody would get out, get into the bomb bay, and go aft. We, the front crew, never saw them. Never even said hello. And somebody would come around and salute, and that meant everything was tied up and ready to go. Maybe 2 hours into the flight, the radar operator said, we got a message. If no reply from the ground, do not come home. Orders will follow. So we flew as if it was going to work. And we got up there, and there was just absolutely no way that we could let out people. It was just solid clouds. The top of the rim of the valley we needed to set them in was visible. We could see that, but that was 3,000 feet above the place where they're going to go. And I wouldn't let them get out. We turned around, and by then the radar operator had the place to go, and it happened to be Rosignano, which was a base that was on the Mediterranean side of Italy. Well, we landed. Now they showed up the next morning at Chow Line. So we went over and introduced ourselves as the front crew. That's the first time, in fact, it's the only time that I ever saw the people that we dropped out. Fred Mayer was very talkative and told me all about his training in airplanes and all the different airplanes that he flew. We got word again, do not come home until the mission is finished. And so we went the next day. There was no way you could see anything. That next day, we didn't do anything. Well, my navigator was always looking for time to calibrate instruments. So he asked me if we could go and do a calibration run for the airspeeds. I said, sure. And I said, Fred, would you like to come along and sit in a co-pilot seat? He said, yes. And so we did our run, and then navigator said, okay, I got enough information, so we could do what we wanted. And I said, okay, Fred. So it's out over the harbor, and he flew the airplane at sailboat mast height, right up in a cut in the mountains, and pull the airplane up in a Immelman, beautiful. Immelman himself would clap. And then he says, okay, that's enough. And so we went back, and the following night, now that was the night of the 25th of February, we got up there, and there was just packed in again. My bombardier and the dispatcher that wasn't going to jump out. He was just going to oversee everything. It was so important. They didn't want to use our dispatcher. They decided that there was an alternate place that they could land on. It would take them an extra day, but at least they'd be on the ground and start the mission. I told the navigator to give us a steer to that place. Well, it was, and it was going to be down the slope. This was a volcano of centuries ago, and left jagged, straight things you could see. Well, they were 13,000 feet. I cleared that and pulled the power off and let the airplane go down. Well, it went down all right, went faster and faster. And I then remembered in briefing, the weatherman said there's going to be high winds in the Alps, maybe 200 miles an hour. So I put the power back up and to normal, and that wasn't slowing it down. I put it up to maximum except for takeoff, which means that's the power that you can run those engines forever. I'm still putting more and more power on until it was at over maximum. It was still not enough. So I put the little latch on the controller for the turbo controls of the engines and put it all away. And the manifold pressure went off scale, and I don't know how much horsepower, but it appeared to be slowing down. I looked out, and we're at the bottom of the valley, so that the winds couldn't go down any further. But now we're at the bottom of the valley, and the valley, in peacetime, you could just fly out the valley, over the Brenner Pass, and down to the Adriatic Sea, no problem. But Brenner Pass was fortified, the heaviest of the Italian area. I had to just keep circling back and forth across the valley. And at one time, my bombardier, who was sitting in the nose turret, says, "Turn, John, turn." So I did. We were lucky. Number one, it was in a cold, cold winter, and we're in the Alps. So the tendency of overheating the engine was not present. At the end, my navigator, he was a bus budget, and he recorded everything to the second. He recorded when I pulled the power off first, and then recorded when we finally got to the bottom of the valley. And we had lost 6,000 feet in 18 seconds, which I doubt if anybody could make a B-24 in still air, make a B-24 go down that fast. We got back up at the top and put the power back to normal, and the co-pilot says nothing went out of the green, which was almost unbelievable. That made me fall in love with the Pratt & Whitney engines. I said, well, everything's working good. Let's go over the primary target once more before we go home. Well, wouldn't you know, it was wide open. I alerted the back that we were going to let them out, and we did, and then came back, and they gave us the proper flashlight that all was well, so we gave them the parachute containers. And Fred, who was the leader, he had a 150-pound bag strapped to his legs when he went out of the airplane, and the ripcord was tied inside the airplane, so it immediately opened, and additionally pulled a pin that let that 150-pound container go down so it would hit the ground first and then let the parachute slow him down so it wouldn't hurt him. We didn't know it was successful until quite late. Near the end of our missions, we got a message from our headquarters, someplace, that their mission was successful. And that's all we knew. I'm proud of that mission. I got the Distinguished Flying Cross because of that.